In 1869, the Jesse James and Cole Younger gang was involved in a racetrack shootout and robbery in Louisiana. This reading tells the story of how that event led the gang to a bear hunt in Coahoma County with the legendary Bob Bobo. If you find these readings worthwhile, I hope you will subscribe to this channel and check out our webpage, Canebrakes.com. The Bandits' Bear Hunt. From The Bear Hunter. The Life and Times of Robert Eager Bobo in the Canebrakes of the Old South by James T. McCafferty. Few personalities in American history are more shrouded in myth and legend than Jesse James. For better or worse, much of the South, struggling with postbellum poverty and mourning the lost cause of the Confederacy, saw in Jesse and his brother Frank and their outlaw cohorts, the Younger brothers, Southern men who had not surrendered to the North but had continued the fight by robbing Yankee-controlled banks and railroads. Such was the myth, anyway. Less romantic minds in the North and South alike, however, viewed the James Younger gang as thugs who, even during the Civil War, had ridden outside the bounds of the law, and at least in the post-war period, were vicious criminals. Their admirers and detractors alike, however, found the Jameses' notoriety exhilarating. The Mississippi Delta was not immune to that fascination with the James brothers. Local tradition has long associated Jesse and his companions with visits to Coahoma County. Perhaps the most interesting story connecting the James gang with the Delta comes from one Captain Kit Dalton, a self-professed former Confederate guerrilla and a claimant to membership in the James gang. According to Dalton, he and Jesse had drifted into Louisiana, hoping, quote, to buy a small farm for each of us and settle down to the quiet and prosaic life, close quote. Other members of the gang, including Jesse's brother Frank, Wood Height, a cousin to the James brothers, and Cole Younger, and probably his brothers Jim and Bob as well, soon joined Jesse and Kit in the Pelican State. Quote, I can assure you our intentions were good, close quote, Dalton wrote. The Youngers and the Jameses were racehorse fanciers. They owned thoroughbreds and raced them from Texas to New York. Once in Louisiana, they quickly located a racetrack. One of the gang, the press later would identify the man as Cole Younger, had a saddle horse he believed could outrun almost anything on four legs. Younger entered the animal in a race with himself at almost 6 feet and 200 pounds as the jockey. So confident was he that his horse was the best that he bet $700, about all he had, that he would win the race. Since photographs or drawings of the gang members had not been widely circulated in those days, the local turf enthusiasts had no idea that the out-of-town racer and his friends were the infamous James and Younger gang. The race began and looked to be no contest. Younger and his horse led the way through the last curve and had a strong lead down the final stretch. Seeing a strange horse about to beat a local favorite and win the pot of local money was more than one Louisiana man could bear. He rushed to the track and waved a blanket in the face of the lead horse. Younger's mount shied and swerved, slowing its pace just enough to cause it to lose the race. Younger was furious. He rode to the judge's stand and lodged with the three men who refereed the races a vigorous protest against such trickery. The judges and the crowd alike responded with jeers. According to Dalton's version of the event, one of the judges shouted, "Cut it out! You have lost! Take your medicine like a man." Younger responded, "It's an outrage. Do you, sir, think I am going to stand for an outrage like that?" "Say, clear out from this," the judge responded, "before I have you pinched." The horseman continued, "But justice, man. Justice is all I want." The judge, having no idea how dangerous was the man he had rebuked, threatened him again. "You'll get that and a sight more if you open your head again." Cole Younger determined to tolerate no further such abuse. "Hand me my money here, you vampire, or by the eternals I'll blow your infernal brains out," Younger shouted. unholstering a Colt's Dragoon revolver as he spoke. Instantly, one of the other judges loosed a shot in the rider's direction, and to his great misfortune, missed. He did not live to fire a second round. At that point, recalled Dalton, the ball now opened in good earnest. As the surviving judges reached for their guns, the other gang members rode to their friend's aid. In seconds, the two remaining officials lay dead beside the first. One of the, quote, nimblest of our boys, close quote, wrote Dalton, mounted, quote, the judge's stand and collected back the stolen money with compound interest, close quote. According to the Chicago Tribune, besides the three judges, 2 more Louisiana men died later from wounds received in that melee. Dalton did not identify the outraged rider as Cole Younger, but simply as a member of the James Younger gang. The Tribune, however, positively named Younger as the angry horseman. Younger himself denied any role in the killings. In his 1902 autobiography he wrote, quote, one of the lies that had been broadcast concerning me is that I killed 5 men and shot 5 others in a row over a jobbed horse race in Louisiana. There is this much truth about it. There was a jobbed race, and after it I fought a duel, but not over the race, close quote. In his book, though, Younger denied just about every illegal act of which he was ever accused, except for his role in the disastrous Northfield, Minnesota bank robbery attempt. He hardly could have denied taking part in that crime, however, for he was caught in the act, tried, convicted, and imprisoned for it. In all probability, Younger was not telling the truth about his involvement in the racetrack incident, just as he obviously was lying in denying his participation in so many other crimes. Whether or not Younger was the chief perpetrator in the Louisiana racetrack shootings, and regardless of the number slain, the outlaws, according to Dalton, quote, made a clean getaway without the slightest injury to ourselves or horses and headed north from Mississippi, close quote. 3 weeks later, the James and Younger entourage was in Coahoma County, quote, visiting relatives of the James boys, close quote, wrote Dalton, quote, who received them most cordially, close quote, and introduced them under assumed names to a, quote, Mr. Bobo, a famous bear hunter, close quote. That Mr. Bobo, of course, was Bob Bobo, Robert Eager Bobo, who extended his customary hospitality and, according to Kit Dalton, quote, arranged a bear hunt in our honor, close quote. The outlaws had never experienced such a thing. Quote, we enjoyed listening to the yelping pack, close quote, Dalton later would write, but found little pleasure in, quote, trying to keep up with it through the terrible forests of canes and bamboo, close quote. Bobo, the outlaws quickly realized, relished crashing through the breaks as much as they loved robbing Yankee trains. Not, quote, a bear in all Mississippi jungle land, close quote, recalled Dalton, quote, could get through one of those almost impenetrable canebrakes easier and with less damage to himself than our honorable host, close quote. The bear that Bobo and the outlaws were pursuing came to bay against the root end of a fallen tree. Although Dalton recognized that Bobo could have brought the bear to a quick end himself, the planter, quote, had taken us out for the chase and wanted one of us to have the pleasure of bagging, close quote, the beast. The James's cousin, Wood Height, was accorded the honor. He, quote, dispatched the bear with 1 shot from his big pistol, close quote. Whether they believed the heat had died down enough from the Louisiana troubles to permit them to move about freely again, or whether they feared being invited on another bear hunt, the outlaws quit Coahoma County shortly after their outing with Bobo. Whatever their reason for leaving, Dalton called the gang's time in the Delta, quote, one of our most delightful vacations, close quote. In his 1914 memoir, Under the Black Flag, Dalton wrote, should this book fall into the Bobo family's hands, it will more than likely be a surprise to them to know how cordially they entertained a band of outlaws. If any of the James gang ever returned to Coahoma County, there is no sure proof of it. Quite likely, the outlaws so enjoyed the Delta hospitality shown them by Bobo and his neighbors in 1869 that they did return in 1878 or later for another visit, as local tradition indicates. If so, they almost certainly did not join Bob Bobo for a second bear hunt. For as Dalton wrote in his memoir, despite their years of experience as Confederate guerrillas and as trained and bank robbers, he and his companions in outlawry, quote, had never encountered a Mississippi jungle, close quote, before their hunt with Bob Bobo. They had found the Delta canebrakes so intimidating, Dalton assured his readers, that they would, quote, never tackle one of them again unless that were the sentence passed, close quote, upon the outlaws for their, quote, misdeeds of the long ago, close quote. The end.